Pixels have always been a letdown. Sometimes it looks too ugly, sometimes the hardware is bad, and sometimes it heats up way too easy. It can happen all at once or once per generation. It has finally come to a point where Google either fixes it or lets it all go. Pixel 9 series is make or break. Either they come on par with the offerings from Apple or Samsung, or they die. And all of this is decided by the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL. And in my experience of 3 months with them, there are signs of hope. Let me explain how. And the first sign of hope for me was the design. This is the most premium a Pixel has ever felt. You feel the solidity in the design as soon as you pick the phone up. The 9 Pro XL is a well-designed big phone that is more comfortable to use than the S24 Ultra and the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And the Pixel 9 Pro is that phone which fits into your hand extremely well and is the perfect size needed in a smartphone. And yes, it is true that the Pixel feels like the iPhone with its flat sides and slight curves around the corners, but that's it. If you look at it in its entirety, it is still a Pixel. The camera arrangement is still iconic even without being a visor. It would still be just as recognizable. The entire back of the phone is super clean and I found myself appreciating it a lot. Up front, the bezels are thin and uniform all around. The front and back of the phone is covered with the Gorilla Glass Victus 2, which is the strongest offering from Corning. But does it mean that the phone would not scratch? No. I have seen multiple scratches on the screen and around the frame and on the back as well, in my use without a case or screen guard. So I would recommend you to get both. Which also brings me to my least favorite part of the design, which are the glossy sides. Yes, it makes the phone grippy, but it also collects fingerprints all around, which does not look as nice. But flipping to my favorite upgrade, the fingerprint scanner is ultrasonic now. It is extremely fast, extremely reliable, and has always worked. And this is miles better than any other fingerprint scanner on any Pixel. Speakers are excellent, they have details and depth, and the haptics are right up there with the iPhones. I love this design. It takes the best from other phones while also maintaining the signature Pixel design. And with all of these details looked upon, it is on par with all of the best phones offered by Apple and Samsung. On to the second sign of hope, the display. This was a big upgrade on paper, and in actual experience, it is still a very big upgrade. This is the brightest display on a phone under the sun. No other phone is brighter than the Pixel 9 Pro or Pro XL, but the important words being under the sun. Because while watching content on Netflix where you can get an HDR movie, the result is not as good. While watching content on Netflix, both of the other phones are better tuned and brighter. The overall scene looks brighter on both phones, apart from the Pixel. But I'm 100% sure that the display being brighter under the sun is a lot more appreciated and will be a lot more useful than the phone being brighter while watching content on Netflix. So for utility purposes, I think you'll be better off with the Pixels. And even if the Pixel is a champ under the sun, it still needs to last long enough so that it has juice even when the sun's not up anymore. And fortunately, that happens for both the bigger and the smaller Pixel here. The Pixel 9 Pro did need a charge sooner because for a day that started around 9 AM, I would need to charge the Pixel 9 Pro by 10 PM. But the XL could go on till 11 PM or 12 AM. As for the screen on time, the 9 Pro XL had 7 or just under 7 hours, and the Pixel 9 Pro would offer about 6 to 7 hours of screen on time, but sometimes under 6 as well. And in both cases, the phones went through intense usage. Clicking photos, scrolling through social media, messages on WhatsApp, with an hour-long video call daily, phone calls throughout the day, listening to music with Bluetooth, all with AOD enabled, mobile data and Wi-Fi enabled, and Bluetooth enabled at all times. The usage over Wi-Fi was about 70 to 80% of the time, with the remaining being on 5G. And this, in my book, is excellent battery life. It may not be at par with the iPhone, which can manage about an hour more of screen on time with similar usage, but this is plenty. plenty more than a Samsung flagship. What I would love to see improved is the pace of charging, because I would rather want a phone that can charge up to 60 or 70% in 30 minutes for those times where I need to charge quickly so that it can last me throughout a long night ahead. With the standard 65 watt PD charger, these phones would charge to about 50% in 30 minutes, which is fine, but to be honest, not ideal. What is ideal though is how good Google is getting with AI on a phone. Gemini runs everywhere on this phone. In fact, the Gemini logo is the first thing you see when you boot the phone up. And it works as a proper assistant on this phone, all because of the different integrations. The most useful thing that you will feel, and I felt throughout my usage, was how easily it understood naturally spoken language. I did not have to be specific with my words for it to understand me, or speak sentences without taking a pause or stammering for it to take the command. It naturally understood me, which is the whole point of AI. And this is how I made Gemini a part of my daily life. I would usually speak or type my query, and Gemini will scan the web and quickly summarize what it has read to give me a direct answer. Simple. Standard. Works exactly like you expect it to. And to give you an example of the queries, I would ask movie recommendations based on what I have liked before, or general knowledge of how much a car service would cost, which can help me negotiate a better price. But in case I wanted to give a very simple command like setting up an alarm, or switching the lights of my room on or off, or enabling or disabling a particular setting in the phone, Google Assistant would come in because it is integrated right into Gemini. And in case I wanted to add a new task to Google Tasks, or just create a calendar event, Gemini would come in with the workspace integration. I even called Gemini in when I needed to see if a complicated long tutorial video on YouTube actually covered what I wanted answered specifically. And I can also call it in for looking for a great playlist on YouTube Music. Even the Gmail app has Gemini in it, which I would use to quickly frame my emails for a product to be returned, or I could use it to search for a specific email with a specific topic of conversation to make my life easier. And you may ask, why does this matter? Gemini comes in other phones. You can use these features on other phones, and you're not wrong. But the advantage here is that I started using these features only when I got the Pixel 9 Pro. The phone comes with a year-long subscription of Gemini Advanced, completely free. So all of these features regarding Gemini in Gmail, in Docs, in Tasks, and all of the different workspace integrations, all of this can be availed only when you have Gemini Advanced. And the next question you may ask is, will I continue to pay for these features when the year is over? And with this being the monthly amount that has to go for it? Honestly, depends on how deeply my life gets integrated with these integrations, and whether these integrations get better with time. So with all of this, let's get back to the Pixel exclusive features, which I have come to use a lot and for now remain free and do not need Gemini Advanced subscription. The Magic Editor on Photos app, it's better than ever. It offers better framing options now, which is excellent, along with generating content to widen the frame if needed. And it works so well that look at the picture of my dog. Here you will see that the floor is reflective, and when the frame was widened, there were elements added to the frame and the respective reflections were also added onto the floor. And another feature that I've come to love is Reimagine. Reimagining certain parts of the image is also excellent if you want to cover up certain elements. And having the option to wildly change the image, like changing the setting I am in, or the look of the sky, or adding a New York skyline to my background, is extremely cool. It's not the most useful thing out there, but it is good to have. And then the Screenshots app with the natural language search feature is excellent. And since Screenshots of web pages saves the address, I do not have to mess up my bookmarks or keep 100 Chrome tabs open. I just wish that this feature was not limited to just Chrome screenshots. And finally, Circle to Search is an extremely cool feature, which I do not use as much as I use the others, but it does come in handy when I like a piece of wearable or clothing in a random video and I want to get it. And there are other features too, but I do not remember them as much, which tells you how useful they are to me. But the most impressive part of the software is this. AI is baked into the phone, and Google likes to market it in every possible manner. But all of these features are not crammed in. It's thoughtful because it works to assist you, not replace you. And I completely get the criticism of AI generating images, videos, articles is the worst thing possible for human creativity. And AI should never be able to replace that. What it should do is make things simpler for us by listening to what we're saying and performing all of the chores and administrative tasks that we can do on our phones, but we do not want to. Just so that we have more time on our hands to be creative. And that's what AI is starting to do on this phone, and that's why I'm a fan of it. And apart from AI, while I was using the phone, there was an Android 15 update which brought in a handful of great improvements. And in the description, you'll find links to some of the best videos that covered all of this in detail. Experientially, the animations, smoothness got a nice little boost. This easily was the smoothest experience for me on a Pixel. The reliability of the phone has been so great, I hardly have had any bugs. At most, what I've seen is the gesture navigation not working that well, but locking and unlocking the phone fixed that. That has happened twice so far. And once the phone's refresh rate just came down to 30 Hz while I was using the phone in power saving mode, and it was fixed within a few minutes after it occurred, but that has just been a one-off thing. Pixels have always been good with software. I've always loved the animations, the look, the nifty little features that add simple conveniences, and it is good to see that it still remains the core of a phone which has shown me more signs of hope than any other Pixel so far. Another thing that forms the core of Pixel phones are the cameras. And with the Pixel 9, Google decided to change the way the photos are processed. So whenever a picture is clicked by a phone, it is processed. And in this processing, the colors are slightly more enhanced. The exposure is managed well enough so that every part of the image looks like it's well lit. And all of this is done just to make sure that no matter where the picture is clicked, whether the sun or the light source is behind you or beside you, you look good. The picture looks good. And now let's try to understand what Google has changed. The one thing that remains as consistent as it ever has been is sharpness. The photos are detailed, structured. The textures feel real. As in, whenever you see the picture of anything, you get a slight apprehension of what it might feel like. I love that. Another thing that I've come to like are colors. They are bright, but more often real. Skin tones come off looking believable too. And if I talk about my dog, a lot of phones mess up the colors of his fur, but the Pixel does it justice. While being natural, the Pixel also likes to maintain extreme control over the brightest and darkest parts of the image, which is good because you will never see the sky just coming off as completely white whenever you're clicking a picture of a darker subject, and at the same time, the subject will still show colors, details in areas where it should. And the Pixel does it so well. The imperfections of doing this can possibly show up on other phones like S24 or the iPhone, but it does not on the Pixel. But everything is not entirely perfect. I told you there have been changes made by Google in the way it processes images. And the one thing that they changed too much is the contrast. Initially, when I started using the Pixel at launch, the brighter parts of the image were brighter, the darker parts of the image were darker, meaning contrast is boosted. This gave the images a character. You could tell it's a Pixel image. But now, with updates, that boosted contrast seems to be missing. Everything is a bit too bright. Shadows at times do not seem to exist. In a way, the dynamism of these images is gone. But the one thing Google should have changed but did not is how warm the photos are supposed to be. The pictures are warmer than before, but still there are times where the photo looks a bit less lively. And that becomes more evident when I compare the image with one click from an iPhone 16 Pro or an S24 Ultra. And there were also times where I felt that the photos could use a bit less warmth too. This sort of habit of Google to overcorrect everything is something that needs to be fixed for this camera to be better. And another part of the camera that could use a lot of upgrades, because it hasn't seen any changes or upgrades in years, is the portrait mode. Because what in God's name is this? Here is the same picture clicked at the same focal length from the iPhone. This is not acceptable. It feels like Google has not worked on the portrait mode since Pixel 2. Specifically because you still can't click portraits from the telephoto lens, which every other Pro phone can do. And every portrait has bad edge detection, overprocessed details, noise, and just deplorable processing. And yes, I can use Google Photos to add a blurred background, but that blur is fake and offers no depth, and every other Pro phone does it much better. But moving on from the lack of portraits, the 5x zoom shots work as well as the shots from the main camera. Excellent details, textures, and colors. The details being this sharp at 5x is something I have come to love, because if I place this phone against the iPhone, it is not hard to spot the noise in iPhone's pictures. The colors are just as good as the main sensor too. The extreme control over darkest and lightest parts of the image also results in just perfectly exposed shots. The natural depth of field is beautiful here. The bloom around the lights is very pretty. As soon as I tap on the subject, the phone locks it in very well. No matter how I move the phone, where the subject moves, as long as it is outside of the minimum focus distance, the shot comes out sharp and ever so impressive. But while clicking such shots, I have to be very careful, because if I got too close to the subject, then the camera will switch to the main lens and then it will click a very digitally zoomed in shot, which results in photos like these. And much like the main sensor, I wish there was more contrast in these photos, would add a bit of dynamism in it. And if you're planning to click 10 to 15x shots through this camera, do not do that. The results are not that great. They're passable at best. But the shots that are way more than passable are from the ultrawide. The amount of details you see all across the frames are amazing. The lightest and darkest parts of the image are well maintained. Neither goes too dark or too bright. And all of this happens while keeping the colors truly consistent and realistic. If you compare these shots with either of the iPhone or the Samsung, you will see both of them mess up the shot. iPhone has been terrible this year with their ultrawide, while Samsung likes to make everything a bit too bright. But where the pixels falter and falter hard are videos. Because of some weird reason, if the source of light happens to be behind the subject, look at what is happening. The color of the skin seems lifeless and bad. Because look at the videos from the other flagships. They are not as bad, they're not nearly as bad. The only saving grace in video shows up in selfie video, which is much better. The skin tones change with the lighting, but they still look good. And the details are good too. You will see some noise in the darker parts of the video, but still this is miles better from what you just saw. As for the pictures from the selfie camera, this has been the biggest improvement on the Pro Pixels. They are much higher in resolution, so you see extremely detailed and sharp selfies across the board. Even with weird lighting, you can expect a good result, which is all you want to see. So it's pretty safe to say that for the most part, the camera is great. Some things need urgent improvement, which bring this camera down. But to be honest, most of the other things are great. But the one thing that has definitely never been great and pretty much bad in the raw sense of it is performance on Pixels. Performance on Pixels has been always the worst part about it. But I started this video talking about signs of hope. And there are signs of hope this time around. First, let's talk about numbers. And with numbers, the story is still pretty much the same. The benchmarks do not show much of an improvement because the newest Android competitors are far ahead when you look at any number. If you play lighter games like Call of Duty, you will see performance that is great because they are not that heavy on resources. Almost every phone out there can run COD well. But when you get to something like Genshin Impact, that's where the numbers are embarrassing. To give you a simple context, iPhone 16 Pro can run this game very well at 120 FPS. And most of the flagship Android phones today can handle this game at 60 FPS. And the Pixel barely manages 50 FPS. But still, I can tell that there are a lot of you who do not really care about benchmarks, who do not really care about FPS or games because you don't game on your phone, and that's fine. Because that's where the good part starts. See, the biggest problem with Pixels has always been heat. But this time with Pixel 9, Google added something called a vapor chamber to the phone, which helps the phone run cooler. This was not there up till the last year when the Pixel 8 came out, and this is what I said about the Pixel 8. Click a few pictures one after the other and the phone will heat up. Scroll through multiple reels on Instagram over 5G and the phone will heat up. Whenever you do something remotely intense or taxing to the CPU, the phone will throttle down its performance, start closing app in the background, and the phone will heat up. And if you want to play a game, you will get decent frame rates, but the frame drops will show up a lot more, and the phone will heat up. But none of this happens on the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL. Yes, both the bigger and the smaller phone run much cooler 95% of the time. Watch Instagram Reels with 5G on, the phone will not heat up. Apply multiple AI edits in the Magic Editor and the phone will not heat up. Use multiple different apps or watch YouTube videos, the phone will not heat up. Clicking multiple pictures, doing intense tasks on the phone will heat the phone up, but not any more than any other phone that you might do the same thing on. And the experience is so much better. This is honestly the fastest and the snappiest I have seen a Pixel work. The only time I've weirdly seen the phone heat up is while using Uber. But apart from that, as a person who uses the phone for anything apart from gaming, you are going to enjoy this phone. And this is simply because it gets the basics right. Pixels have been a letdown because of them failing at something that is a very basic need of a user. All someone wants is a good looking phone that has the display that one can always see no matter where they are, reception strong enough to always have the internet and the ability to make calls, extremely reliable battery life, useful software with intelligence that assists, and a good set of camera, even if it is not for videos, with performance that makes the phone run well. And the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL do that. They're immensely better Pixels for that, and hence better phones. And as you might have realized throughout the video, the Pro Pixels have come on par in multiple ways with Samsung and with iPhone. But let me be real, performance numbers not being up to the mark means that there might be issues with longevity, meaning that the Pixel 9 Pro may not be as good 4 or 5 years down the line, as good as the iPhone 16 Pro might be, or the S24 Ultra might be. They have the numbers to do well for the next 4 to 5 years. So buying a phone at the same price as them does not make sense. What you should do is wait for a good deal to show up, because a good deal on Pixels shows up faster than other phones no matter where you are in the world. I loved my time with the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL. I've not only seen signs of hope, but I've seen a massive step forward. And I'm excited about what's to come. First of all, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. Consider subscribing, because we already established you like this content and you like me, and maybe like the video as well. And if you have any questions regarding the Pixel 9 Pro or any phone in general or any tech in general, just let me know in the comments and I will reply to that question.